Welcome to a brand new edition of Creators Outlet with our special guest this evening, Chris Harden. You might have seen him win a thing or two on the Shark Tank. Hello.
Hey, Will, happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, sure. Let's see. I'm an electrical engineer who eventually became a software engineer. Worked in a bunch of different industries like game development for EA Sports. I now work at a company called Unity, which is a major engine for mobile gaming. And I've also got a background in graphic design and illustration and film and art. So I sort of bring those two together along with an MBA and an interest in entrepreneurship. So I sort of meander through the three realms of technical creativity, artistic creativity, and then business creativity. I got two kids. And my wife is a psychiatrist, and she has her own practice. And so that's me. I'm sort of into dadpreneurship, I guess you could call it, and love creating. And my challenge, like many inventor types, is figuring out the right idea to move forward as opposed to continuing to go in all these different directions.
And you did that with an invention on Shark Tank for sure.
That's right. So the invention I co-created with a guy named Jeremy Scheinberg. We, about 8 years ago, created a little product called Trobo, Trobo. And it was a robot that reads stories about science and math to kids aged 2 to 5. And it was on an iPad. And I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but there's a couple of Trobos there on the shelf. They're little plush robots. They have Bluetooth connection to an iPad. So that was lots of fun. And in fact, that was hatched right here in Orlando. I'm from Orlando. And we spent about 2 years working on that, got on the Shark Tank, got some good coverage, and then spent another year with it. We could not get investment to go to the next level, so we eventually shut it down. But on Shark Tank, we started a relationship. It's called a handshake deal with Robert Herjavec. And so we went and did our pitch, and all the sharks had their feedback, and Robert was interested. He wanted to connect us with Universal Studios that controls Shrek, for example, for licensing. And the goal was to take and make Shrek dolls, and then the application would be Shrek as well. So it'd be a licensing deal. But what happens in Shark Tank most of the time, or 60% or something, is you go, once you shake hands with a shark on the show, you then go into due diligence like any business would. They look at your financials, they look at your IP, and they give you terms, and the sharks all have terms, because they're really in the investor seat. And so where it landed was he had two issues, and we had one issue that we just couldn't get aligned on. So we ended up parting ways about 5 or 6 months after we did the show. And his people were great. They helped us out with marketing and pricing decisions while we were going through due diligence, but we just couldn't align. And so, Rob went his separate way, and we did too.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know too much about it, and I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and she's like, "What, like Teddy Ruxpin?" I go, "No, I'm pretty sure he didn't invent something else we can put an Ozzy Osbourne cassette into."
It's funny you say that, but your was it your spouse you said?
My girlfriend, yeah, my
girlfriend. She nailed it. In fact, Teddy Ruxpin is often referred to when people talk about Trobo. Even on the show, we talked about it. But it so happens that Teddy Ruxpin, about a year later, came out with their version, because it's a connected toy. It's an IoT kind of toy, Internet of Things kind of toy. They came out with one, too. It was really slick. It had an LCD in the face, and it animated the eyes. It was really charming. I don't know how well it did. I think the space, Trobo was at the forefront, along with one from Fisher-Price and a couple of others. They're really pricey toys. And so you have to have a large content library to feed the initial purchase. That's one of the hardest parts about a toy like that, is that it has to have a lot of content. Content's always expensive. As you know, Will, you're a podcaster, so you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember the XLR too.
XLR?
Yeah, it was like an educational robot. Looked a little more science fiction-y for the time. Like came out, I think, like the late 80s, early 90s.
I remember that now that you mention it. I'm going to look it up real quick while we're chatting, but I do remember that one, yeah.
but I do know both Teddy and the XLR. If I got the letter abbreviation right,
Yeah.
they're both like highly collectible.
Well, and Teddy was gangbusters. I mean, the stories about from the founder, it was there. He found himself at points where he was in China trying his best to keep all the manufacturing lines going himself because there were so many orders. They didn't want to lose any of that income. So it was a huge deal at the time. These days, of course, it's different, but it was very groundbreaking at the time.
Well, Luke didn't have a chance to get back to me, but I kind of like figured it out on my own. They renamed the button. So I was like, wait, what's this? So when it went live, we can now bring up
lovely.
the Kickstarter for Candy Cane Wormhole game.
That's right. So I'll give you an introduction. The product is actually a book, a treasure hunt game, and a candy kit all in one. And the marketing is around the Candy Cane Wormhole game because it's kind of the forefront of the engagement. It's a game based. But the idea is that it's a new Christmas tradition. And this little squirrel accidentally triggers an experimental wormhole. And it sucks up a bunch of toys and spreads them through space and time to different locations. And he goes on a journey to get all the toys back. And he's also very unconfident. So he goes through his own growth where he becomes a confident squirrel. And basically he always wants to help Santa, but there's no way for him to help Santa. So by the end of it, he's gotten all the toys back, and he goes to Mars, and he goes to a swamp. He goes back in time to the dinosaurs. But in the end, he gets all the toys back, and he misses Santa as Santa's taken off in his sleigh. So he and the science elves that were inventing this wormhole deliver all the toys instead. And then after that, Santa welcomes them to start delivering toys with Santa, who's getting a little overwhelmed with the 8 billion people on the planet that we now have. So while Stanley's going through this, he goes through 7 values like patience, bravery, being thankful, etc. And there's a game that's associated with it. So what the kids do is they build this little candy cane wormhole. If you scroll down the page, Will, you can see a photograph of what a candy cane wormhole looks like. Go all the way to the very bottom. I used to have it at the top. But you'll be able to see a good photo of what. There it is right there. Scroll up a little bit. It's right in the middle.
There they are.
So these are some creative ones where kids did a little bit different than usual. They put in gels and different colors of candy canes. But if you scroll up just a bit, you'll see the actual kit. It comes with, if you go all the way to the top of that picture set right there. It's basically a little way to assemble the thing that's in the book. That's the candy cane wormhole. And so it has peppermint sticks and marshmallows and chocolates. Reindeer dust is the little cookie sprinkles, and then the snow squirrel fur, which is one of the magical elements that makes it work, is cotton candy. So they build these, and the way it works is they're unstable because they're experimental. So Stanley sends the kids a gift, an early Christmas gift through it, and it gets lost in the house. And so the kids need to go on a treasure hunt to find this lost gift. And if you go to the very top of that listing, you can see the deck kind of splayed out there as to what the deck looks like. Go all the way to the top. There you go. So there's the idea. There's patience cards. And while they're going on this journey through the house, they're solving riddles, and they're practicing patience and problem solving and being healthy. And they make the wormhole stable as a result of doing all these practices. So it's a very interactive Christmas experience. And in the end, the early gift is whatever the parent wants it to be. It can be favors, it can be candies, it can be an early Christmas gift. But they go through this whole journey, and it all starts with the book, and it ends with the treasure hunt.
So this is perfect for a rainy or snowy day inside with the kids.
It is. And in fact, I've gone through three trials. One of them was a summer trial with the treasure hunt deck itself, but not branded for Christmas. And it was just to see if the game mechanic was really fun. And because of who you are and what you discuss on the show here, I'll tell you the first. This has been through three trials, 2 Christmas trials and a summer trial. The first one, I wrote a different game mechanic. It was a book full of letters to Santa. Still had riddles, like these all have riddles because it's a treasure hunt game. But man, was it boring. I think my kids didn't remember. They didn't really enjoy it. The parents were kind of saying, this is okay, but it just wasn't really fun. I put the treasure hunt deck together and shipped it out on little business cards. It wasn't anything special. It was just white business cards. And I had 25 families try it that second summer. And it was insane. They all loved it. They all wanted copies. The kids wanted to do the treasure hunts again themselves, just asking for the decks so they could make up their own treasure hunts. And so then I knew I really had something. And that second Christmas trial was the full product with the game mechanic that you see here. And that they rated 9 out of 10 was my Likert scale rating. And 9 out of 10 means they really loved it. And so that was encouraging. And that's sort of how the product came together last Christmas. And now I'm, of course, pitching it this Christmas for Kickstarter.
And how many Kickstarters have you done in the past?
Just the one with Trobo. So for that one,
okay,
Jeremy and I raised $61,000. And
nice.
of course, Trobo was a much loftier kind of project, and it had hardware inside and all this kind of stuff, and software, which is very expensive. And this one's a $10,500 Kickstarter.
And you're like 3/4 of the way there, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm close. I'm not. Let's see what I am now. If you scroll up to the top, we can do the math. It's been a bit of a busy day today, but folks have been backing me today. It's been really sweet.
$7,003.
Oh man, I actually didn't know I crossed the $7,000 mark. Yay, that's really encouraging. Okay, so it's a 66% right now, almost 67. Oh, that's so cool. That's really wonderful. Yeah, so there you go. It's I guess someone backed me while I was having dinner, which is I'll take that. Yay.
Yeah. 109 backers. It's in the final week. If I know anything about Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they start sending out, time's running out for this project. They'll send people out like the 48-hour notice and the 24-hour notice.
That's right.
And usually in most cases there's like a big jump at the very end. Like it'll if you take off like gangbusters, it'll slow down a little in the middle of the month, and then like the last like 3 to 5 days you start getting more and more, and then you get like a little crazy run at the very end that I found on a lot of these, especially the game ones. Like I've backed a lot of Kickstarter games. They're all comic book related, but that's me.
Yeah, I love comics too. Yeah.
I backed a card game for Umbrella Academy.
Oh, cool.
I remember backing before it became like the #1 game in the country for a while. I remember backing Exploding Kittens.
Really? Very cool. I got in on the tail end of that bandwagon, but it's great that you got in on early.
And they've done like expansion packs for that, and they've got the same creators that did that did another card game called the Unicorn Army, which my girlfriend found on clearance at Walmart. Yeah. And so we're gonna play and check that out. My daughter loved Exploding Kitten. She's like 14 now, so she liked playing. She just didn't like losing.
We have a copy of it. It's great. Our kids went gangbusters on it for a while. We also really love Taco versus Burrito, which is a charming little kids game.
Oh yeah,
it's so charming. And because I'm on Shark Tank, I know the mom was on Shark Tank, and her son created that game. So she's super sweet. They have these little outfits that they wear, little big tacos and burritos and foamy outfits, Yeah, it's neat to see some of these entrepreneurs and their children starting to do that kind of entrepreneurship.
And somebody else just backed.
Oh, did they? All right, live, baby. That's wonderful. I'll take that all day long. And I tell you what, every little bit helps, man. It helps a lot because it makes you know this thing is moving forward. But you said something, Will. There's a podcaster, Richard Bliss, I used to follow. He no longer podcasts for Kickstarter, but he has a huge Funding the Dream podcast. And he talks about the Golden Gate Bridge effect. It's basically the number of backers you get at the beginning, and then it goes lean, and then it comes in at the end as people remember. Even today, some folks that backed said, "Hey, I forgot. I've been intending to do this, and I finally got to it." And that's what's going on here. We're starting to see some of those folks who've been intending to do it, realizing that it's getting close. And to your point, the last day is the 13th. So I've got the T-minus 8 days now is coming down to the end. So it's going to be a busy few days for me. You talked about comic books, Will. I think I mentioned to you before the podcast that I also used to be in comics. I was an assistant inker to a couple of professionals, so like a ghost inker.
Yeah.
And I also published my own graphic novel way before Kickstarter existed. This was back 20-something years ago. And Kickstarter has changed the dynamic of comic book publishing for the little guy in so many ways. And I wish I had Kickstarter back then, but it just didn't exist,
Now, how did you meet our common ground friend, Andrew Lavolo?
Andrew is interesting. Actually, he has known me and I've known him. We've been friends for longer than when I got published in Marvel and DC and Top Cow, if you know Top Cow.
Oh yeah.
So I was working. I'm from Orlando, so MegaCon is a big convention here in Orlando. MegaCon. And so back in the day, I was illustrating because I have a background in illustration, and I really wasn't good at inking then. I have a industrial design background, so I have good control of pens, but as far as inking comics, it's a whole different ballgame. Anywho, at MegaCon, in the first year or two of illustrating comics, I had done like a couple of small press books. I met Andrew and actually a couple of other lifelong friends also in the space who worked with Andrew, because he's a publisher and he's been publishing for years. And I only recently saw his Bumblebee Camaro, and I'm hating just a little bit on that. So he hired me as one of his illustrators on one of his books, and it was sort of a partner of his he brought on. They were doing a vampire book, so it was all about vampires, a sort of police vampire story. But that's sort of where we built a relationship, and I've seen him grow his product line. The guy is passionate about the space, and he's a really talented writer. So we've just stayed in contact over the years. And it was actually during that time when I was a lot younger illustrator that I also met a guy named Jay Lysten, who's a professional inker. He's still in it today, and his inks are off the chain. And he's in the stratosphere in terms of books he publishes. But that's where I learned to ink from this guy too. And I got to eventually work on Spider-Man and some Batman comics and a bunch of others that are in those spaces, some Tomb Raiders and Witchblades and those kinds of things. So lots of fun time. This was back.
I bought all those books in the past.
I bet you did. Do you remember? It was out of Tampa. What was that? Oh, it's not coming to me. The startup that for a while in the late 90s, they were killing it out of Tampa. And they had a ton of comics coming out. And they had a studio, actually, in Tampa as well. What is their name? I've actually, Will, I don't know where you're at. You got a Red Sox shirt. You're not in Florida, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I know a lot I have relatives in Florida. And I've had a lot of friends that lived in Florida. I have a friend that was from Florida and moved to Ohio.
Okay.
And was a comic is a comic creator as well, Martin Dunn.
Okay.
Him and another Floridian who was just on the show a few weeks ago, Harvey Lugo, had teamed up, and they made this book called Project Overwatch. And it was they printed up enough copies to show off at MegaCon, but the printer messed up and they forgot a couple of pages. So there are errors.
Yeah.
But a little video game company that does a lot with orcs and fighting and charging people a monthly fee to play games online.
Yeah.
Bought the comic and the storyline from them at the convention, they worked everything out with lawyers, and that's what became the video game Overwatch.
What? Are you serious?
I have one of those original books.
What? Oh my God.
Signed by Martin and Javier, and Javier did a sketch on the cover for it.
Oh my God. Is it sealed like in a black box hidden from all UV light?
Yeah, I've got it in one of those one of the homemade slab cases.
Oh man, that is a piece of history. Hold on to that thing.
So I'm like, I've had a couple of people be like, whoa, you've got the book that started Overwatch?
What?
I love that game. And then they panned and they showed their room, and behind them was Overwatch action figures, posters, pops, you name it.
That's the money. You've got an investment sitting right there.
So, I hope that game goes a long way because
Overwatch is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And season 2 was just started on it. I wanted to play it to check it out because, of course, I read that book like multiple times. I know they changed all the characters and stuff, but I've seen a bunch of like the short animation clips, which are like, fantastic. But
yeah, Overwatch is gangbusters. It's done really well. I found I don't know if can your viewers see my screen while we're talking?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I was just going to say cross-gen comics.
Oh yeah, I loved those.
Yeah, right. Well, so they were. You can go back to the main screen if you like. They were. They blew up. They were huge.
Oh yeah.
And the inker that I got trained by, his name's Jay, was at the studio they established in Tampa. Absolute phenomenal talent, and loved their styles. And they were a big player at MegaCon for many years here in Florida, in Orlando. But one thing led to another. They had some financial troubles, But of all the histories of being a comic book collector, it's rare to see a company really make it to that level. Kind of like Dark Horse and Top Cow, Image. I mean, you were probably around when Image blew up.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But it was like that kind of company. But unfortunately, I think their business model was a little wonky and it didn't work out.
Yeah. Like, I know Chuck Dixon worked for CrossGen. He did the Way of the Rat series and a couple other things for him. I actually scored for like $10, like a big, like oversized book, and it's the art of CrossGen, and it's not just the art; it's like interviews and like technical talk from like the layout guys to the finishers and everything else. And I'm like, this is awesome.
It's behind the scenes. I love that stuff.
And I bought all those. There were companies that came out. Malibu was great in the day, and then they even had cartoons for like the Prime universe, which I thought was like that. Everything that was in there, I thought this is just a genius idea. But when Valiant first came out, they exploded. Now all they do, the new Valiant, now all they do, because they're run by DMG, is make they make like limited series here and there. They don't do a lot of anything really now. But CrossGen was one, and I remember Jim Shooter came out with Defiant Comics, and the late great Neil Adams came out with Continuity Comics.
I'm thinking of one too. Lady Death. Do you know that guy?
Oh yeah, Brian.
Yeah,
Brian Polito.
Yeah, Polito. Yeah, I met him one time. He was super cool, and he had a real successful career with his branding. I don't kind of know where he is these days, but he had Lady Death.
He's still doing it.
Is he? Okay.
He like some of the characters that he used are locked into Dynamite because they picked up a bunch of the stuff.
Okay.
So he's still got Lady Death, but sadly he doesn't have Smiley the Psychotic Button anymore.
That was pretty successful too, as I recall. Yeah.
I've got a ceramic button of Smiley on my leather jacket. So he's still doing the Lady Death stuff, and he's got like a couple of other storylines going. There's like what seems like 100 variant covers.
I remember variants were a big thing back. I have recently. I don't collect because I have kids and just don't have time in the day. But back in the day, variants were such a big deal. You know, X-Men would come out with a ton. When Todd McFarlane was doing Spider-Man, and they kicked off that series with him at the helm. It was just tons of variants with color, gold, silver, and it was just a time for variants. By the way, I still follow Todd, and so he's announced that Spawn's got a new movie coming. He's teasing. And I love Spawn. I'm a nut for Todd's style and his work. Grew up watching his work on Spider-Man, and then he just went supernova with Spawn. But I'm looking forward to the new Spawn movie. I'm curious what they're going to do.
Yeah, I like some of the old DC stuff, like the history from DC.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a fan of the Justice Society. So like the Golden Age from World War II and everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just, as a kid and even now, I just found it like really interesting, and it was good storytelling.
Yeah.
But they did the knockoff where it was like all the kids of the Justice Society became Infinity Incorporated.
Interesting. Okay.
And Todd worked on a run of Infinity Incorporated.
Cool. How about that?
And he did like, a handful of other things back and forth for DC.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite stuff that he did for Marvel, I loved his Spider-Man stuff. But my favorite had to be his run on the Hulk.
Interesting. Okay. I know he did X-Men work. Let me see his Hulk work. I mean, you can tell his style, so.
Yeah. I think it was Peter David writing and him doing the art.
Oh, I know these. I didn't know who he was then, but these are all huge. Yeah. That was I think he was one of the artists who, just like with Spider-Man, he took Hulk to another level in terms of of what he's like. What can I do with this character, and really just explode it, And that's a quintessential cover right there. When Spider-Man has gotten some sort of, I remember this time he got special powers. It was he got Captain Marvel powers, and he didn't know what it was at that point. I want to say this is the one, and he knocks him into space.
Yeah,
that's a good series. So do you guys talk a lot also about game dev and comic book dev? What are some of the favorite things you like to talk about, Will?
Well, I like to talk about everything. Gaming seems to be a big comeuppance with a lot of the new indie comic creators. They're not just looking at their IP as an ongoing comic book series, but there's so many creators now that are like looking at like tabletop games to go with the stories.
Yeah.
I talked to one creator, Chris Fisk, who was in video game development for many, many years, in tabletop development, and he finally put his lifelong dream from being a kid. He developed his own version of like a D&D style game.
That's cool.
And they originally launched it, like play tested it back when he was a teenager. He is no longer a teenager. But there's like 10 books in the first story arc.
Okay.
For what he's going to be putting out. And that lays the groundwork for the entire game. Now, in this, you could get a limited edition 10-pack of cards that go with the game.
Cool.
One card that is set to be the card to have, because in the game there be dragons there, and there's a lot of things written in the ancient tongue of dragons, but nobody can speak dragon but the dragons.
Okay.
But this card lets you translate dragon, so you have a step up.
That's cool.
He put like some limited edition cards, like the like when you buy like a pre-assembled deck of like Magic the Gathering, you'll have like a big foil, like oversized card laid all across it. He sent out cards like that. and double-sided, like 3-inch PVC stand-ups of characters that are going to be for the game.
Wow.
So basically, every book that he releases, there's going to be another part of the game in there, but it's all going to be limited edition versions of what will come in the actual game box.
The final game. Oh, interesting. So he's treating his game development as a serial production, just like books.
Yep.
That's pretty savvy.
There's also Joseph A. Michael, who does a lot of like small press work. He does just about everything. He's sent me like scripts and books to check out to get my feedback on, because I've read so many. I got like 300 long boxes in my house between long and short. So I'm trying to get rid of a bunch of them so I can make room for more comics.
Let's talk a little bit about that process, because it has some dynamics. In case you have folks interested in the production side, scroll down to the very bottom of this page, and I'll show you what the complete product looks like. Scroll up just a little bit. You'll see there it is. This is the complete product. And I can tell you, Will, I started out just making a children's book. But I did a lot of assessment. So we'll talk about the business side of this kind of stuff if you're interested for your listeners. I just honestly wanted to create the folklore. Like I want us, if my dream is to be something like the Grinch one day, who knows? But that's the big dream. But the book, I looked at Kickstarter, and if you looked at the category of books with Kickstarts, $2,000 or $3,000. They're small, they're self-publishing, you can get it done. Totally cool, right? But I was like, is it going to be enough to just do a book? And I got to thinking about comparable products and how to make it better. And I started with the candy cane, the actual kit there, the food kit. I was like, this is interesting. Kids can get interested. It's kind of like comparable to gingerbread houses. But I wanted a game mechanic, like your friend has described, your two friends, and maybe more. I needed something that could be more engaging. And it's not a tabletop game. Okay, it's for kids. They run around the house. It's a treasure hunt game for kids. But the game, all the cards are based on places in the book, like what you just described with your friend.
Yeah.
And the goal there is to reach an audience that really is interested in gaming, game development, game play, and who wants something for their kids to play too. And so I put the game mechanic around the theme in the book, and they're integrated because I cycled through two user trials, or 3 total, with this idea of how can I make it a game? How can I make it more engaging? And the cards, every one of them has one of the values that Stanley has in the book. But what's happened now is when I launch, I'm no longer just launching a book. I have to cover the minimum order quantities, which I'm publishing in China for a book and for the game. And also I have to deal with perishable food items in this particular case. But the minimum order quantity for my printer for books is 250. But the minimum order quantity for the cards, and that's like a 52 game deck. It happens to be 60 because you can fit more on one sheet when they print it. That's 500. So what happens now is by adding a game mechanic to the book, I'm adding more value for the customer, but the actual deck of cards costs more than the book to make. And so it elevates the overall price to get this full kit, because it's now a book and a game mechanic and the food. The food's actually a small part of it. It's probably the cheapest part of the kit. And because the minimum order quantity is higher, I had to think in larger terms. Instead of 250, which is for the book, I need to see if I can get to 500 now, 500 units. My goal for Kickstarter is 250. That's the minimum order quantity, and I'll pay for the extra book or the extra card decks that come along with it. But if you're a creator and you're wanting to have a comic like you described and some sort of game mechanic, you recognize that it inflates the size of your most basic Kickstart. Whereas I could have come to the book and probably kickstarted for 4,000, maybe 3,500, depending on when I wanted to ship this thing. Shipping is a huge part of this too, a big part of it. I'm now at 10 because of the game deck and also some expedited shipping that I have to work in. It completely changes how you launch if you happen to be interested in using Kickstarter for launching your comic book. which I wholly endorse. That's the way to go these days, because you don't have to front load buying thousands of comics like I did with my first graphic novel and have them in the garage for 10 years because you didn't sell them. I was actually distributed through Diamond. I mean, I was through Arcana Comics. I'm not sure if you know Arcana.
Oh yeah. I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, good company. Had some real good successes. Real fan, small enough that they'd be interested in my work. But I went through them, went through Diamond, and I had a decent run. But I had a lot of comics still in the garage because I paid for all of it up front. Whereas with Kickstarter, you know what your customer base is going to be like before you pay for the print run.
Yeah, I know. Just regular book wise, there's so many that I've backed, but they're all like 80 to 150 pages. So you're getting like a nice big thick graphic novel, and the average price for those is like $25 plus.
Yeah.
So, and that's that's comparable to buying a graphic novel at any store you like to shop at. Your local comic shop and whatnot. That's going to be the price because it's going to be the price of the book, and shops don't make all that much money on books.
Yeah, and usually Kickstarters don't easily either.
Yeah.
They're usually either they're trying to break even, or if they're thinking long term, they're trying to get to the minimum order quantity and then have enough so they can sell and make it to the next order. Use those profits and get to the next order. That's what I'm trying to do here. Back in the day when I published, I had a book called The Fro. It was had a big afro and it'd charge up with music energy and then fly around on a Fender guitar. And
I saw those books on Amazon.
Did you? Okay. Lots of fun. I hired a team out of Indonesia. They were brilliant and talented. And it took about a year of production cycle to get it all done. Where was I headed with that? So that back then I could sell those books, and it's a graphic novel, 78 pages or more is the minimum, for $15 and still have a small profit on a $15 book. These days, that's kind of what the cost of the book is, and you have to put some margin on top because the prices have changed over 20 years.
Yeah, because you have to get the variable of, how much is the post office going to charge. I know a lot of creators are making custom boxes to ship.
Interesting.
So they're getting so like in your case, you would have like the Candy Cane Wormhole game, like a larger box. Mm-hmm. You would have the sealed perishable kit in there. The cards in the book would probably lay across the top, but they'd get like a nice presentation coming through.
It's like you looked in my house. That's exactly it. Yeah. Oh. And it's a custom box. It's not a retail box though. So let's kind of talk about if I were just a book publisher, comic book, or in this case, a children's book, whatever, you can ship that media mail, $350. Just put it in bubble wrap, $350, and it does fine. Or you might do it like a rigid mailer, but still media mail because it's just a book. But yeah, to your point, I've got like a 9x9x3. This little square box because that's a square book. You open it up, the book's on top. You lift it up. It's a little shelf to hold the book, an area for the candy, and an area for the card deck. And it walks you through steps 1, 2, 3, how to play the game. So yeah, you're right. The custom boxes are a big deal. But I was talking with someone. I went to a Shark Tank convention just last week in Las Vegas. Like 200 Shark Tankers came. We all got together. We're sharing ideas. And one of them was a friend of a Shark Tanker who's launching something new. And she was on American Idol. It's weird how all our little world is. You meet people. She's a singer. And so she has this stage, a portable children's stage. It's like a road case. It opens up and pops up a full stage for these kids to play in front of with curtains and stuff. And we were talking about retail packaging versus economy packaging. So if you have a publisher, if they're just in comics, they're going to ship to a comic book store. But if they're a game publisher, they might be making a retail box, and there's some real price on a retail box. Those things can be $2 and $3 a pop, depending on your volumes, and that adds a lot to your end cost for a Kickstarter if you're just self-publishing. But if you're doing something that not is necessarily going on the retail shelves, but you're just shipping direct to consumer, then you might do an economy box, which is usually what you see now when you get from Amazon. It's brown paper, or in my case, it's white paper, and then I use a really lovely labeling that goes on the outside. but it's simple and cheaper, and it keeps the overall cost down of the product in the early days. And so my goal is eventually to make it into retail. I'll be doing Amazon for 2 years if I'm lucky to get through Kickstarter here and make it to Christmas. And then after 2 years, I'll look into retail, and then I'll invest in a retail box that is designed to get people to pick it up off the shelf like you would at a Target or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the publishers, if they got a game, they can choose the fidelity level that they can go at for their first boxes. If they're trying to make a little bit of money and get some margin to reinvest, they might choose a cheaper box than something that's a full-on retail thing that's trying to drive velocity and sales off of the shelf. Yeah.
I know, for example, the difference in boxes with Cryptozoic.
Okay.
Joker fan, Batman fan. They just put out a game based on Frank Miller's blockbuster Dark Knight Returns.
Ooh, okay.
And it's a miniature game. Comes with all the miniature characters and everything. It's a big box. It's perfect for home defense or whatever. But I got the Kickstarter version, and the Kickstarter version, it's got kind of like highlighted silhouette lines, like if the moonlight was hitting Batman, in an alleyway or something. But it's done in the Frank Miller style.
Nice.
The Kickstarter edition of that game, the deluxe Kickstarter edition of that game, the outline of Batman is done in gold foil.
That's nice.
The retailer version that's available now that you can buy either through Cryptozoic or your favorite game store or department store is outlined in like blue foil.
Nice. So as a Kickstarter, you're the only crew that has the gold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Kickstarter exclusive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those. I have a Kickstarter exclusive that I hope to get to with this one here, but it's a stretch goal. And what I want to do is have a wraparound cover that has the storyboard art from when I originally created it.
Oh,
and
nice.
Everyone's name. Everyone who backs me is going to get their name on there. But I got to get the goal. Once I get to the goal, to add actually a wrapper that goes as just for exclusive for Kickstarters is like, for me, an extra $500 or $1,000 goal to hit. So I hope to get there, but I first got to get this goal. I like Kickstarter exclusives a lot. Big game publishers can really pull that stuff off. Do you know James Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games?
I know Stonemaier Games, but I don't know him.
Yeah, he has games
directly.
Like Scythe and some other Viticulture. He has a couple of really big win games. Anywho, he does Kickstarter. He did start Kickstarter exclusives. He talks a bit about, he wants you to be a little careful with those because in the end, if you kickstart with an exclusive that you'd love to have in the main game, well, you're kind of stuck as a publisher because you've already promised it as an exclusive. He had one game he did that with, and he had to remake all the tokens with some different materials that were also nice, but not the same as the exclusive. And it's got to be a push and pull, I think. If you're a big game publisher and you can offer something really special, that's wonderful because no one else gets it but the Kickstarters.
Yeah, I think a couple of companies that do the deck building games, when they crowdfund them, it'll have like a special box art on it with the characters, and the retailer version will have a completely different piece of art on it with some of the characters and display of the cards so you can see what the game looks like. Yeah. So it's two totally different presentations. And there's some people that are like diehard game collectors, like I am, a comic collector.
Uh-huh.
And you wouldn't believe the aftermarket for like Kickstarter and Indiegogo exclusive versions of games.
I can believe it. I mean, something like, I'm going to just pull a number out of my ears here, but 60% of Kickstarters are games or something. And they have a huge pie chart, huge section of the pie chart. It's nothing but gamers. It's a very passionate community in Kickstarter, and there's always something amazing coming out. And if you're a big gaming fan, you can get some really special stuff. So I would imagine if you ever decided you need to sell it, somebody's going to want it.
Oh yeah.
It's limited.
Yeah, it comes down to it's a limited edition. Like if a certain because stores now all the time, the big thing now, comic wise, is stores want their own exclusive cover where you can only get the cover through them. And they market this thing throughout all their social media pages, like on every social media page, to get people to pre-order them. And they're offering like 9.8 graded copies signed by the artist. You know, a yellow label is like, you know, $80. You want it signed, it's another $40. You want a remark on it, it's like another $80. It's like a crazy market. And
I didn't know that. Wow.
What it is these stores are paying the publishers. Now, somebody like a Marvel or DC, you got to pay them like $25,000, and then you have to order 10,000 copies of your own book, of your own exclusive cover.
I don't know many comic book outlets that can do that.
There's a bunch of big stores, and a lot of that is going through like some of the Facebook selling groups. There's a group called comic book something, but it's a bunch of people that all they do all day long is they've got time slots. So this particular network, all through the day, every day, has live sales going on.
Huh.
And this
particular you have to go through that many comics. I mean,
yeah, and this particular group was founded by Jesse James Comics out in Arizona, cool. And Space Cadet Comics in Texas. Okay. And there's a bunch of other people involved now, but they just run show after show. It's basically the same thing with the Whatnot app, which is like all collectibles, and they have twisted a knife in the back of eBay, basically.
Because they're niche. They're like, bring your collectibles over here.
They're niche, but Whatnot only lets you use Stripe to buy and pay for stuff.
Huh. Okay.
And to sell on there, you have to get approved by them and Stripe to be able to sell. If they see something they don't like on in your social media history, they'll be like, no.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, that's okay. They control their own world. I don't know if you know it, but Kickstarter and Indiegogo both use Stripe. Like, I had never really heard of Stripe until these, but if you listen to books and stuff, they talk about, Kickstarter gets like 5% and Stripe gets 3% or something like that. And they're in so many countries because they're always in the countries that Stripe can support. So I guess Stripe is bigger than I understood. I didn't know they had another sort of major supplier like that. That's cool.
Yeah, like I've got a PayPal and like a Google Wallet and a couple of other things. I know one dealer that I buy from. He doesn't use PayPal at all because of some possible shady business practices that have been going on over like the last couple of years, where they turn around and if you make too much money, they're like, well, this is suspicious, so we're going to hold these funds for an extra 30 days. Well, they're holding them. They're making interest off that money in their own personal bank account.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. And the same thing with eBay. If you just started like a new eBay account today, if you sold something, $100 or $10,000, they're going to hold those funds for up to 30 days.
Well, okay, but hang on now. I can understand that if it's like an escrow account to protect the buyer. Mm-hmm. Is that the plan? Is that what they're saying? It's like, hey, look, we're gonna hold this thing.
I think it's the other way around.
Okay.
Because I sold a limited edition figure that I did a review on for a company. I got to keep it, and I'm like, this is nice, but I could use some money. I sold it, and for not nearly what it was worth, but oh well. And they told me, yeah, we're gonna hold that money till you ship it. I go, well, how am I supposed to pay for shipping without the money?
Yeah.
I go, I've had an account with you for, since '08. This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I've
I'm trusting
fulfilled.
what's going on.
I'm trusted. I'm a trusted seller and buyer. This doesn't work for me.
I wonder if they got overrun with fraud, like people swindling somehow.
They might have. They did the same thing to Eric July, who launched his comic Isom,
Okay.
and made over $3.5 million on his first comic book ever.
He must have one heck of a crowd.
He has millions of followers on YouTube alone, and people that subscribe to his channel, so they pay him every month so he can keep producing content.
Oh, like a Patreon kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And he's got a huge following. He's a musician, had a band going, so he had people following him from the music side. He had people following from the comic side, and just his commentary as stuff that's going on in the world. He put his show on hold to get all of this done,
gotcha.
And it paid off for him big time.
Yeah. Brandon Sanderson, I don't know if you know him. He's a publisher. First time selling his novels, as I understand it, this year. He had a $4 million kickstart. And,
beautiful.
And I was like, okay, this is what normally happens. This is also true for Exploding Kittens, by the way.
Oh yeah.
These folks, they over the years, they're publishing and they're online and they build their followership. And it's all free, and they're building this. They're investing, right? They're investing. They're giving content. They're entertaining people, and they bring these crowds with them, these millions of people with them, and then they publish, and it pays off. But they've invested 10, 15, 20 years building these followings of people who really love them, and it makes all the difference in a launch like that. It's a big lesson for any content creator, but it's not. There's no silver bullet. Those guys earned their crowds over time.
Oh yeah.
And then when they really knew they had some people who believed in them, they published their creations, and it paid off. So I respect that.
So I want to take a look at some. I want to take a look further at the game, but I also want to take a look at some of the tiers.
Okay. I can walk you through them if you like.
So we have a $10 or more tier, which is the print and play version of the game book and the ebook.
Yeah. So I'm only shipping in the U.S. Because of the food, because I can't ship to. Well, honestly, I just don't want to deal with figuring out how to ship food across to Europe. And Canada has requirements on perishables. So unfortunately, it's a bit of a limiter in terms of geography right now. But if you're like, I have a lot of friends in Canada because I work, at Unity and EA Sports, and we have studios around the world. And so a lot of those folks, either one, maybe they don't have kids and they don't really need the stuff, but they're trying to be supportive, or they live in a different country like Europe and they can't get a copy. So this is a way for them to support it. They can still enjoy it. So this is sort of the, hey, I want to support Chris and get an electronic copy of the two things. That's what that is. And then the next one is the book only. So I didn't introduce this one to begin with because I'm trying to hit those minimum order quantities of the game cards. But again, I have a lot of friends in Canada, and actually calls out. This is actually the only one that ships to Canada. So folks who are just interested in the book, they can get that one. I introduced that one just a couple of weeks ago, so it doesn't have a whole lot of backers yet. I think the families that want it for their kids are interested in the full kit.
Yeah.
But it's there. And so I have some folks who just show me some support there. And this one is really the full kit. So it's got everything you see in that picture there, and it's discounted. There's a full price down below, but $35 is the price on Kickstarter. So like we talked earlier, Will, about a Kickstarter beautiful exclusive limited run version versus the one that's going into like retail. That's really great when you're a big publisher and you can make those two different runs. I can't. I'm a little guy. So mine is more about, hey, let me bring this dream to life, which is sort of the essence of the original Kickstarter before it went supernova. But I'll give you a deep discount for supporting me in the early days. So that's what this is called, the early scroll discount.
Nice.
Okay, and then I have one that is Orlando specific. I live in Orlando. When you back it, you got to pay for shipping, which hurts. I don't roll shipping into the price. these things cost $12 for me to ship halfway across the country, and then not a full another 12, but a few extra dollars to get all the way to Seattle. So this one here, if you live in Orlando, I'll deliver it. I'll hand deliver it to you, and you don't have to pay for shipping. That's what that's for. It's for Orlando folks or the Central Florida people.
Well, that's great. Speaking of Florida, how's everything going there after the hurricane?
We were lucky. Thank you for asking. We had a little bit of flooding in some neighborhoods here in Orlando, but it went south of us, like through Kissimmee. And Kissimmee, which is, you may know Kissimmee from Disney, they got a lot of flooding. And a lot of folks in Tampa and different areas got a lot of flooding. Fortunately for us, we had some power flickers, and this is true for most of my neighbors, but no real outages and no major damage. So, God was kind to us, and my heart goes out to anybody who has some real damage from the hurricane.
Yeah, I saw that one scary picture that somebody took of a gator like swimming through their parlor.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
I was we love it here, baby, but we got to move.
You don't want that, right? That is not what you want. Oh, there is something charming though, Will. I have a friend. Her name's Karis. Her husband walked through a flood area from a little squirrel, baby squirrel that had fallen, and it was struggling to get out of the water. It was going to drown, and it kept getting blown back in to the water because the winds are still going when Chris, his name, he went out. So Chris trudges through the water and sticks his foot out. And the first time this baby squirrel didn't take him up for it, but the second time he ran to it, got on his leg and crawled up his pants leg. And eventually it kind of hangs in a private area for a minute, and then it crawls up his shirt. And it went viral. She took the video. It went viral. They've seen like 4 million hits on TikTok. The video's been licensed now. This just happened over the weekend after the hurricane. So you might do a little digging, or I can send you a link. But it's a super cute little squirrel video where a guy saves this little squirrel's life and feeds it.
Oh, thank God it crawled up my shirt.
Yeah, it was so cute. He had this great face, like what just happened. But really charming little viral video that's out there right now.
Oh, nice.
So this one here is the full price in case folks don't care for the discount. Some folks are there to support me, and they go for the full price just to show some support. It's all good. I try to make the prices available for whatever people can afford and what they want to do. And so in this case, they just they get the full kit. Now 59 is a bit hard, as you can imagine, on a retail shelf, but that's the volumes. So as I grow this thing and I get my volumes down, then I can get the full retail price down as well. But right now, if I go either 750, 500, or if I can reach 750, which is where I really want to go, I can start bringing the prices down. But this is for those minimum order quantities.
Nice.
Yeah. The next one is the Orlando version where you don't have to pay for shipping.
Free delivery.
Free delivery, hand delivered. And then there's a buy 3, get 1 free. In case families have multiple kids, multiple gifts they want to give out for Christmas. And so the idea is that you can buy 3 and get 1 free. And so it's a pretty good discount.
Oh, nice.
Same thing for Orlando,
But with free delivery.
But with free delivery, again, because it's tough for people to want to pay that shipping when they know I'm just down the street, Anywho, and then this is one of those deals where if some personal friend or whatever just wants to show me some extra support, you'll often find this in Kickstarters. There'll be a larger backer order. This one is $500 for 5 units, and I'll also come and make a presentation or run a treasure hunt for them, etc. But that's for those sort of secret Santas that really want to support the project for more than just the product itself.
Well, this would be good for an event like at a local Orlando game store.
Yes, it would. Eventually, I want to get into schools. So the game deck could be changed to science, technology, engineering, and math topics. And the riddles would go to different centers, like in little schools. That's sort of a growth opportunity for the future, like roadmap of the product. But for now, this is sort of where we are. And there were a couple of early launch day discounts and day 2 discounts. Pretty standard for Kickstarters.
We're sorry you missed out on those.
That's how it works, right? That's how it works.
So, there's a picture of you and your co-creator for Trovo on Shark Tank.
Yeah, we were there out in the Sony studios in Hollywood City. And, we were backstage and we rolled around on the golf cart because that's kind of how they travel. And Of course, the stage, is all fake, so all the walls and stuff don't lead to a ceiling; they're just walls. But you walk down that blue hall, and they have someone when the doors open, they roll the doors out, and you walk through, and the music is going and all that, and then they say you got to stand on this spot. So you rehearse it first. You stand on the spot, and you wait for however long you need to wait until the producers tell you go. And when that happens, you have something like a minute to a minute and a half to say your introductory spiel, and then the sharks engage with you after your introductory spiel. We lasted about 45 minutes in that one. So.
Oh, that's a pretty lengthy one.
They actually, the TV show always cuts them down to something like 8 minutes because they kind of move through these things. But behind the scenes, they can last 30 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever. Ours happen to be around the average range of roughly 45 minutes.
Nice.
This is a section on inclusivity and diversity and inclusion. So I talk about, my characters are diverse races, body types, obviously genders, and medical histories. Because what I began to realize after I first published it, and I work at Unity, is all about diversity and inclusion. So about 2 months after I started this project, I joined, 3 months, I joined Unity. And so I got to thinking about it, and I realized that I don't have enough in the book. I don't want children to feel left out. So all of my Santa Claus shots that I initially drew and inked and watercolored with my artists in Ukraine, I changed them the second year. I turned Santa around backwards so you couldn't see him, so that children of ethnic backgrounds can imagine Santa however they want to. And there's one shot where Santa's way off in the distance and you can't tell his skin color. And the goal there is to let children imagine whatever Santa they want, and also feel like either in the science cells, which is in the top left, they invented the wormholes, the children that Stanley's trying to serve in the top right, or the squirrels, because there are other squirrels besides Stanley, that you can come in from a bunch of different backgrounds and still be a part of the story. And the octopus on the right is actually a nanopus. She has 9 legs. And if I ever get to do offshoot stories, you talked about your friends have a comic book series. There are 8 jump off points for sub books in here. This one's going to be about this nanopus who feels mistreated by a bunch of other octopuses who don't accept her because she has 9 legs and or tentacles, and how Stanley gives her the gift of friendship in order to make her feel better, and then in exchange for that, she gives him the dolly back, which is one of the toys that's going to the kids.
And even more importantly, he's snorkeling with a candy cane.
You notice that? Yes, that's his little tool. He'll slide down, light strings of lights and stuff. That's sort of his little tool. In fact, you can't see it in this drawing, but the pink squirrel that's just in the foreground in the bottom left, I'm going to make, if I ever get this far, I would like to make her into a Valentine squirrel. And she has a licorice whip, kind of like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
As her tool. And then the green squirrel there, again, if I ever get to go this far, I'd like to expand into Halloween. And of course, his special abilities are speed, because he's in one of those, handicap racer kind of vehicles there for wheelchairs. So I don't know that I'll ever get there, but there are spots where I can expand in multiple dimensions, and one of those is exploring some of the other squirrels.
I too am in a wheelchair.
Really?
I wish I was as small as a squirrel, but it's tough to lose weight after 40.
For me, it's tough to gain. I've been trying.
I would gladly donate some to you.
Thank you.
Scheduling and manufacturing and.
That's my family right there.
Oh, it's very nice.
Yeah, their inspiration, all the values that, of course, are in the book come from trying to teach these kiddos being more thankful and giving and patient and brave. And my daughter is still learning to be braver. And in the early days, I had to work a lot on being thankful with my son Asher. But they're both very thankful and giving. But they're just family values are sort of what's in the book and in the game. Yeah.
I missed something. I know I missed something. I know. Oh, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to hit on your reviewers and supporters. So you've got stuff from Geek Mom, Geek Dad,
Mm-hmm.
Toy and Game Fans, everything board games,
Mm-hmm.
Kids Can Think, Inventor's Guide, Invent Tank, Print Ninja, and 1 Million Cups.
Yeah, and Will, if you're cool with it, I'd love to put the Creators Outlet podcast on here since you're showing me some love tonight.
Oh, for sure.
Great. So I'll do that next couple of days. And I have a few other reviewers. I haven't. They're going to be coming out. I got one coming out tomorrow who I'm excited about. So every time I have a reviewer or a podcaster spend time with me, I like to thank them and put a little logo there.
So this is perfect. You got candy for up to 4 kids. Gameplay is about 15 to 30 minutes. Ages 3 and up. I could probably see a couple of adults wanting to do this too. But it's a perfect, it's a perfect little fun treat game. You might learn a little something about yourself and others while you do it. And hey, there's candy. You had me at the ingredients for the wormhole. I was like, oh, this looks good.
I'm glad you like them. Thank you.
So, what's your time frame for shipping?
I will be delivering these before Christmas. So as soon as the Kickstarter's over, as long as I meet the goal, the proofs have already been done with the printer and approved. I just tell them go. And that normally takes them 6 weeks, but because of shipping being really a problem right now, I don't know if you know, Will, but it's really hard to get consistent shipping. I'm having to expedite, and they say that's a 1 to 2 week turnaround for expedited shipping. So ideally by Thanksgiving, this is the plan. I have a little buffer. I will have the books and the cards and the packaging all in hand, and the food ingredients I'll be purchasing, of course, closer to Thanksgiving, so they stay fresh. I'll turn it all around during the Thanksgiving week and ship it out that week or just the week after. And it'll be priority mail in the U.S. mail, which usually take 3 days to turn around to the families. So they'll have it well before the Christmas holiday. But this is a tradition that you do before the holiday.
That's good. I know shipping is tough for everybody, especially when you're getting product from overseas, with everything going on with the supply chain and all that. It's, it's tough getting stuff. And especially I know group of creators that I had backed hit a bunch of snags because they were going with a local printer that they got for the price they want, the way they wanted the book stitched and everything. And then at the last, the week before they were supposed to go to print, paper shortage. They couldn't tell them when they were going to be able to get the paper. So then they switched to getting it printed through a friend of theirs connection in China, and they had to. It was like a 12-hour turnaround because of the time differences.
Yeah. For
like all the edits, it's like, nope, we need this shifted this way and that shifted that way, and so they're on the way. They've already got their proofs in, but they're like months and months behind schedule between COVID, paper shortages, massive shipping problems around the world, and they're finally back on. But they would have liked to expedite their books, but they didn't have the available funds to expedite the books because there's so much stuff going with them.
I can tell you, shipping. If you any of your listeners out there are interested in going the Kickstarter route, take time with calculating your shipping costs. Not just shipping to your customers, but the shipping to you is 2 times you get hit for shipping. And if you can print in the U.S. or whatever you're doing in the U.S., man, that's a real time savings and a risk reducer. Mm-hmm. I tried to find printers in the U.S. I couldn't find one in time for this. I love Print Ninja. Their user interface is just brilliant for Kickstarter. You can calculate down to the penny what you're going to be paying them and for shipping. I mean, they have got a user experience that is off the chain. So I'm loyal to them because 2 or 3 years ago, I was calculating this stuff out to see what it would cost. But if I could print in the U.S. after this, I will. Not because I don't love them. They're brilliant, but because of this whole idea of having to wait 6 weeks to get shipments and stuff. It's so hard. So if you are interested in doing a Kickstart and you haven't done it before, one, your followers are welcome to talk with me. We'll be happy to talk with them through it with them. But shipping is like the margin killer inside any Kickstarter. If you don't really plan shipping well, you will spend all of your money that you would have made as margin, and you might spend more just dealing with shipping. So
Yeah.
I always try to bring some reality to people. Shipping's hard on this one because it's a seasonal product, and I got to sell it at Christmas time when people are thinking about Christmas, and ship it right now until I have enough stock to get me through the year. But if you are a publisher or want to be one, and you're wanting to do something like a Kickstart, you really got to pay attention to shipping.
And the post office just raised their rates again, because they never lower their rates after the holiday season. They only just raise them, and then they keep raising them.
Well, we all know that our dollar is deflating, right? It took a real hit this year,
Mm-hmm.
and so all the prices are going to go up, and it's now daisy chaining through the system, right?
Yeah.
The whole value chain. It eventually comes back to us as consumers in some way.
Sadly, but
yeah.
Sad but true, like Metallica sang.
Good song.
So I want to thank you very much for joining us and talking about a wide variety of topics this evening, especially your children's game package, which I might try to get a hold of, just for the candy, but. I'm sure even my 14-year-old daughter would play it just to get a Christmas gift early.
That's the fun part.
And I know my girlfriend has a young daughter that would love playing this, and not just for the candy, just because it would be fun.
Yeah, the treasure hunt's really fun. The kids race around the house, and you got to come and slow down. But yeah,
I'll have to put plastics all over the comic books. I don't want them spilling cotton candy on my comic books.
Good time.
But I want to thank you very much. Wish you all the luck. We'll be sharing this out. After we wrap this, I will be downloading the versions and uploading it to a podcast platform afterwards. So hopefully this all works out well, and you will be very, very busy around Christmas time shipping out lots and lots of games.
Fingers crossed. Will, thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a real pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to talking with you sometime in the future.
You as well. Have a great night, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Will.